Hey everyone, how are you all doing? So I've been trying to start this video now about 5 or 6 times, and I keep walking past people and keep stopping. So it's something I'm going to have to get over. We'll see how we get on. So this time I want to talk about working in a toxic work environment and what it can do. This is something I experienced myself. I should be very clear, this was not the last job. This was the job kind of before that, and I was with this company from about 2011 to about 2020. Now, to start with, the company was really good to work for. The owner was a decent guy. My boss was a really nice bloke. He kind of let you get on with the job, and as long as the job was done, he left you alone. But again, gave you the right amount of support. And those were quite decent years. Things changed in 2017 when there was a management change. First of all, the CEO changed at the top, and then he brought in his own people at kind of some of the director levels, one of them being my new boss. And then he in turn brought some new people into our department. Now, my department was quite small, so it made quite a big difference with these changes. Now, what I hadn't realised straight away was the guys and girls that I was working with were actually really close to the new CEO. And they were good friends. So it started off where things felt a little bit strange. Now, things were very minor at first. I just noticed little things when he started sort of picking at me a tiny little bit. But then, to give you an idea of how bad it got, over that period then of that sort of 3 years, I've now got a work diary of around about 6,000 words of what actually happened. And it's this that I've been reviewing over the past few months, to try to kind of clear my head a little bit on some things that have been going on. So going back to day to day, as I say, things started off really kind of low key to start with. There was just little bits of nitpicking here and there. But over time, this really kind of developed and got really quite bad. I was getting sworn at, shouted at. I was having my work checked by people at the same level as me, even though they shouldn't have been checking it. But the second I asked them a question, I would get grief for trying to cause trouble. And it got to the point where eventually I got myself so kind of worked up by the whole thing, I called my boss in to have a conversation. And at first he kind of listened, then he kind of went away sort of quietly. And I think he pulled me into a meeting a few weeks later to say, the problem's not theirs, the problem's mine. And that kind of hit me a little bit, because I was like, okay, maybe it is me. And that knocks your confidence a little bit. Then the next 6 months go by and things get really no better, and they kind of start deteriorating. And I start hearing things around the company about these characters, and just to be clear, there's probably about 3 characters that I'm talking about, were kind of going around and being rude to everyone, upsetting people, and really being quite nasty. They had a place of kind of real entitlement, and that was bred from the guy at the top saying, you know, we are the most important, everyone works for us, which doesn't make for a really good collaborative environment, does it? And I had more and more people getting upset by these sort of 2 or 3 people. And so things deteriorated worse and worse from there. I remember times when I was sworn at, I would go into meetings with these 2 or 3 people and literally just be pulled apart. I could only ever do wrong, they were only ever in the right. So it didn't matter how much hard work I did at the time, they would do better, or I wasn't working hard enough. And in fact, it was me, because of a lot of this going on, I was one staying late, trying to do stuff, and it just was not great. And it started to really affect my confidence. It got so bad at one point, these 2 people I'd come into the office in the morning and I'd say good morning, try and keep it civil, but at best I'd get a grunt out of them, and was really quite often ignored. And I found out on more than one occasion they were going out together, all the three of them, plus the CEO, and having drinks, and you're pretty much left out of that. Then in 2018, things got so bad. There was one day I remember where they really upset one of the girls in the other departments, so much so that she sort of walked out of the office and ended up going to HR, which she had every right to do. And again, this has been building over time. This wasn't just a short-term thing. This has been going on for a couple of years by this point. So she went to HR, and it was the first time I heard that people were actually starting to challenge this behaviour. And it was that point that I sort of decided that I kind of needed to sort of back her up a little bit and go over my story. So I spoke to HR myself about the sort of similar things. And it turned out at that point, actually, there were other people that had made a few complaints over the course of the year or so. So we were not alone. And the space then over the next couple of weeks, there was various kind of meetings with the so-called manager and HR. And in front of HR, it was all very civilised. I was told they could understand where I was coming from. They could see that the other characters were actually in the wrong and that it would be dealt with. The bit I'll point out that was in front of HR. Things then went quiet for about 2 or 3 weeks. And I think I was in a customer sort of meeting at some point, and I was with the boss at the time. And we were on our own for the first time in a while. And he spoke to me about it. And his comments were, I think it's you, not them. And this come up again. This is the second time he said this. And that really got to me yet again, because you start really challenging yourself. But the one thing I had to sort of grip onto was, it wasn't just me moaning. It wasn't just me complaining. There were other people having the same issues. And I challenged him on it. I pulled him up. I sort of said, I don't accept that. It's them. You can't keep sort of blaming everyone else apart from them. And he would not have it. Then within a few months, we had our appraisal. And mine was very kind of bland, shall I say. But the one comment I had in there was, you need to improve your relationship with these 2 other people. And I kind of saw red on this, to be totally honest. The rest of my appraisals up to this point have been really good. And this one kind of really made me quite angry. So I pulled the boss aside and said, what's going on? You know we've had these issues. HR have been involved. And he kind of almost basically laughed in my face and went, you just got to get the relationship better. And I said to him then, okay, that's fair enough. I want to assume that the other people have got this in their appraisal and we'll work on this together. And he wouldn't tell me if they had or hadn't. I very much got the impression they hadn't had it in their appraisal. So I started seeing this as a bit of a warning sign that they were maybe trying to play a game here. So I spoke to HR. They agreed I was in the right, but again, didn't do very much about it, just kind of wanted it to blow over. Ultimately, what are they going to really do about it when they're going to go so far if the CEO's friends with this guy? So after all that went on, I was lucky enough to have a 4-week holiday where I went away with the missus and my lad. We went to Australia for 4 weeks, which is fantastic, and it gave me a little bit of space. And in that time, it was really interesting because my wife at one point turned around to me, probably about 2 weeks into the holiday, and said, you're back to your old self. I couldn't understand what she meant. She went, you've not been you for a long time. And then I realised how much this was starting to affect me outside of the office. And then one evening we decided that after a long conversation, I was going to come back, hand my notice in and just walk away and find something else. And that point right there was so empowering that I decided that, you know what, I'm done. I'm getting out. I don't think I'm in the wrong. I think I've been pushed out, but I just need this to end. And that moment of power felt really good. Sadly then, as we always do, we get home, we sort of look at things in a more realistic way, look at spreadsheets, money, that kind of thing. And I decided, actually, no, I can't leave. I've got to have to put up with it a bit longer. This is the point where things really started to go wrong. Things started to really escalate here. I was getting shouted at. I was sworn at in the office. The meetings were just pure bullying. I had other people in the same boat as me who were from the other parts of the company having the same experiences, yet nothing was being done about it. Christmas 19, I remember being pulled up in front of the whole office, in front of the CEO, where he started to swear at me for an apparent mistake that had been made, nothing to do with me, but he was effing and blind at me in front of everyone, saying I didn't effing belong there, how effing dare I'm just trying to F his business up. That obviously took its hit. Then as we went into that new year, things just got worse and worse. And I'm saying, I'm not going into every detail, we don't want an hour's video on what happened, but things really did escalate and I was getting myself in such a bad place. I didn't think there was any other option. I remember the sort of final day in March where I sat in the office and I was a broken man. I couldn't concentrate. I remember just looking at my screen and I was just kind of hitting refresh on the news. I don't know why. I think because COVID was coming along, I was worried that if I left this job, I wouldn't find something else. I remember just doom scrolling. Something in me had broken at that point. And I remember walking out onto the balcony where the office was and just thinking to myself, it's gone. I can't do it anymore. Something in me at that point spoke to me and it told me just to call the doctors, get in front of the doctor. That's what you need to do. And I done that. I called the doctor. Luckily back then they had appointments and they got me in that day, and I just spilled my guts out to him. And I spoke to the doctor. He was really good. I remember he took my blood pressure at that point in time, and it was something like 200 over 110. It was insane. So he instantly signed me off for a few weeks, which just gave me that space. So I think the plan then was to take the 2 weeks to myself, take some time out, and then work out what to do from there. Then as that 2 weeks went by, we went into COVID. And as we all know, things went a bit weird at that point. And suddenly we were all put on notice that we could lose our jobs and made redundant. And out of three of us, one of us would have to go. And to be totally honest, I really didn't have it in me to take that fight any further. There was no way I was going to fight for a job that ultimately I didn't want. So I decided to take voluntary redundancy and get the hell out. And that was the end of that. I tried to have a closing meeting with HR. It didn't happen. I tried to say my piece when I left. It didn't matter. And up for a long time, those people were still there. And in fact, two of the ringleaders are still there now, and there's been no change. So that was over 5 kind of years ago. So why am I bringing it up now? Well, something I've learned over the past couple of months since losing my job is that I was actually using that last job as kind of a sticking plaster. It was promotion from what I was doing. It was with a much, much friendlier company. So in some ways I was able to sort of say a big up yours to that old company. So when it's come about and I've now again lost my job, it's kind of brought back some of those feelings I've had to deal with. And what I've discovered is staying in that toxic work environment or a toxic work environment can really kind of have an effect on the rest of your life. And I just want to make this video to talk to people that may be going through this right now. So maybe they don't make the same mistakes as me and they start doing something about it. The lessons I learned, which I wish I'd put into place then, is first of all, well, it's kind of 3 things. The first one is to never believe you are stuck. You are not stuck. There is always a way out. Now, what I would suggest here is start making a plan. How are you going to get out of that toxic work environment? Now, one thought might be to sort of try and deal with the HR thing and maybe go down a grievance route, which is of course something you can do and you should maybe try. But there are work environments where HR is not there to help you. And I think that could be the case in a lot of places. They're there for the company. So if you find yourself there, start making a plan, take back control. I would suggest start looking at what else you can do. Is there a new job you can take? Even if that new job is not there right now, just by starting to look and building like a goal or a plan towards that gives you back a little bit more of a sense of control and self-worth, I would almost argue. This plan may take 18 months to kind of fruition, but if it takes that long, at least you're out in 18 months. Don't do what I did and leave it and leave it and leave it until eventually you just fall over. It takes a lot longer to get over that than trying to find a new job, believe me. Secondly is to, as you're going through the experience, to ensure that you keep a log, keep a diary of everything that happens, no matter how big or how small. Now, this could be used potentially to go to court if you want to go down that route, or more importantly, something I found useful is recently I've been able to look back on that. It's not been an easy read, but what I can do in a more calm, better state of mind, I can join the dots and I can see what happened. And it really tells me that this had nothing to do with me. It was everything to do with them. I was not liked for whatever reason. I didn't fit the gang and therefore I was not welcome. And when I read back on what I wrote down, I look back at that and go, Cole now would not take that shit. I just wouldn't allow it to happen. Just really wouldn't. And then finally is to put some boundaries in place. A friend told me this back in the time that I was going through it, but I didn't really understand it. But putting boundaries in place is really important. Stop focusing fully on work. Go in, do your job. If you can, do your job, just go home. Try and turn off your phone, stay disconnected. Don't be looking at work emails at home. Whatever you do at home, whatever you do in your extra time, it's not going to help your situation properly or realistically. Spend that spare time you've got to either spend time with your family and friends or actually be working on your plan to get out of where you're at. You owe them nothing. If it's got this bad, and you know when it has got that bad, you do know, focus on your new life, not your old life. And that's really important, I think. Now, I should caveat this. I'm not some kind of employment sort of lawyer or anything like that. This is just my own experience and the things I wish I'd done. And the things I know that if I'd done, it would have given me more sense of control. So, yeah, I hope you find it helpful. So I've rambled on long enough. I think this is probably going to be quite a long video. I hope I can cut it down a little bit. But if you haven't switched off right now and you're still watching this, I suspect you are going through this right now. And I'm really sorry that you are. And all I can say is, it's not you, it's them. There are better times ahead and you can make it happen. And feel free to reach out to me if you need to. I really would happily speak to anyone going through that same situation right now, because I know I could have done with it back then. So yeah, if you are still here, thank you. And if you feel able to, do comment below maybe what you're going through. Obviously don't give too much away if it gets you in trouble. And I'll leave it there, and I wish you all the best. Cheers for now.